what I do know is that from our pre-colonial stories and our whakaaro, which are all our carvings in Te Ao Māori, is that open sexuality was enjoyed.
We record this podcast on Gadigal land in Sydney and pay our respects to all First Nations elders, healers and storytellers. As therapists, we recognise the wisdom that lives in land, body and spirit, as well as the queerness that runs through nature's veins. This always was, always will be Aboriginal land. Welcome to Gestalt Me Gently. My name's Dabaco. I'm here with my queer compadre, partner in crime, Matthew Bergen. How are you arriving, Matt?
I'm arriving excited. It's great to be here today, picking up this episode, and it's great to have a guest here with us. I'm excited to be sitting with our wonderful guest. But I'm arriving feeling bubbly inside and, some excitement and the opportunity to kind of pick up where we left off. It's been a few weeks since we've sat in recording, so it feels good. I feel the magic.
I also feel the magic. Yeah, I feel the magic. I feel the springtime energy. I feel a bit of caffeine from coffee and a little bit of cacao also moving through my system. I just had a lovely cup of cacao before sitting down to have this conversation. So I'm feeling alive, stimulated, and ready to deep dive into some lovely conversation.
Right. I hope you're not too caffeinated. Are we going to have to give you some downers?
You might need to keep an eye on things. I might start levitating. If you see me drifting off, just pull me back down to earth.
All right. I'll do my best.
So our very special guest joining us for Gestalt Me Gently today is someone that we have been chasing and tracking down for this chat. She's been a little bit elusive, but I'm really excited that today is the day. Spring is here, a new chapter's unfolding, nature is blooming. What better time to introduce our guest? She is a mother, a partner, a pianist, a nature-based Gestalt therapist, educator, supervisor, has been a trainer for both of us at TRIA, and an indigenous healing practitioner. A really warm welcome to Gina ONeill. Gina, how are you arriving?
I'm arriving with a little bit of tightness in my jaw and noticing some nervous energy that I'm sitting with. And as I say that, I notice that I'm already feeling a bit like it's loosening. And that was a really beautiful welcome or introduction. Thank you, Dabaco. And open.
Yeah, I'm really excited about today's conversation. I think a really lovely place to start would be to talk about lineage and bloodlines and cultural histories. It's a real gift that I have taken with me from the TRIA training, by being able to talk about lineage and ancestors and elders. Being a TRIA student, it actually prompted me to go do a DNA test and actually get some clarity on where I come from. And I would really love for you to have a bit of space to talk a bit about your heritage and lineage, Gina, because I get a sense each time you show up in spaces that I'm in, like it's a really important pillar for you as well.
Yes, thank you, Dabaco. Well, the first most important thing for now is that my feet are firmly planted on Bundjalung country. And the lands, waters and skies of this beautiful land. Especially today, what I'm feeling as you're speaking around lineage is deeply honouring the process of the passing down of sovereign knowledge. And in doing that, I honour the old people and the ancestors and the elders and the young people and this vibrant resilient passing down of knowledge between the generations. And as a First Nations person from over the seas, I stand in fierce solidarity with all First Nations custodians on this country. And I also acknowledge all of our ancestries, our 3 ancestries and lineages that will be standing with us, within us and with us today. So that's the first part that I'd like to just acknowledge. So I am a Ngāti Kaununu Māori Moana Nui a Kiwa woman from Aotearoa. I have bloodlines to the dark forests in Germany. I also have bloodlines to the lands of the Irish. And I'm yet to know more about both of those bloodlines, but I know I have them through the stories I've been given. And yes, they're my bloodlines and they're my lineages of my cultures that make me up in my blood and my bones. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. I'm curious because our podcast, this first season of Gestalt Me Gently, has a queer lens that we're looking at Gestalt therapy through, and our just the intersections of different modalities and queer identity. So I'm curious if you see any parallels between queerness and indigeneity in terms of like challenging dominant paradigms, honoring difference. Is this something that you've noticed in your own work? I know you do like a lot of nature-based therapy, and a concept that was introduced to us through our training was Dadiri, like a deep listening practice as well. And so I get really curious about your thoughts around these indigenous practices, and if there are any parallels between a queer lens of seeing the world.
Yes, there are many. So I'll start with my father, and we were having this conversation the last time he was over to see me, and his answer was really simple and spoken through the ancestry or from our pre-colonial ancestors, really, that there was no such thing as like gender roles or specific ideas around sexual orientation pre-colonial times in Māori, in Te Ao Māori, which is simply the Māori world. And so he was just saying it's our interconnectedness of all life and all beings, more than human beings and human beings, which includes queer identities, which is a term from now. But what I do know is that from our pre-colonial stories and our whakairo, which are all our carvings in Te Ao Māori, is that open sexuality was enjoyed and was fluid. So that's my first, from a cultural perspective, that's my response to what you're saying. And we have a term called takatapui, which you may or may not be aware of, which is the actual meaning or the etymology of that Māori word, just to put it simply, is an intimate companion of the same sex. And it's come to mean a lot more for the whole queer community and LGBTIQA plus community in this time of now. But I think with respect to our history in the time before, PC, not BC, pre-colonization, it was accepted as like changing like states of attraction in sexuality was enjoyed. It was no real judgment around it. It wasn't even really anything other than natural. There's so many examples of that. And I was recently in Canada, and we were going on a hike, and the person that was guiding us on the hike was talking, not particularly about this, but just talking about some of the ways in which animals kind of operate in the wild and in nature. And I thought, well, what are the actual direct examples of how nature is queer? And then so they were talking about worms in particular, that they have both male and female organs. And then I remember an uncle here telling me that avocado trees, which I find incredible, I don't know if you've heard about this, but they produce pollen, what do they call them? Pollen producing flowers in the daytime. And they produce pollen receiving female pollens at night.
Wow, I
on the
didn't
tree.
know they have that whole like trans journey through a day cycle.
Yes.
I'm very happy to know that I had like a very queer inclusive breakfast this morning of avocado toast.
There you go, right? And then just other examples, like frogs change their sex when there's too many of one sex around so that they can create balance in their frog community. And also female bonobos practice female to female arousal when they're trying to bond with non-relatives. So there's so many examples. There's a plethora of how to directly answer that, how nature is queer. But I think two things that come up for me in terms of looking at queerness and nature is that two things. The first thing is just the interconnectedness that I was talking about before, which I would say that in both our more than human and human, including queer identities, and same in nature and more than human, which encompasses everyone, our ecosystems both experience very complex layers and adaptive qualities, and the mystery or the spiritual connectedness, we both, it's very shared. And so I just really think interconnectedness would probably be a word that comes up for me. And the other thing is that I would say both the idea, both queerness and natureness has shared experience of being colonized. So from an indigenous perspective, this pre-colonial idea of open sexuality being enjoyed was cut short by the puritanical ideals that were forced upon us from colonization, which are heteronormative gender roles and sexual identities. And nature experience being colonized also, that nature became, rather than another being or kin that we're related to, that we're in a symbiotic reciprocal relationship with to exist and live, and be well and thrive, it became, under the colonial paradigm, something to be taken advantage of and as a resource to be made for consumption, and capitalism was a product of that.
Beautiful. I feel like you've given us a wealth of content there to chew on and digest. I want to slow you down before you answer all our questions. But yeah, beautifully shared. Yeah, I can tell that Matt has a burning piece that he's wanting to bring in right now.
Yeah, no, thank you, Gina. Wow, it's really wonderful to sit with you and listen to some of this information that I've kind of known and resonated with, especially around what you're talking about with colonization of nature, and also just the beautiful complexity of nature and its diversity. And I'm really moved by Joan Roughgarden's book, Evolution's Rainbow, and a phenomenal book and text on just how complex nature is and how it's always adapting to its environment, so the species can continue to evolve and not extinguish itself. So there's lots of, I'm going to use that word plasticity, where things are moving in design to allow things to adapt to what I guess in Gestalt we would call the field conditions. And I'm really touched at in being able to kind of sit with you and be able to kind of get a direct experience from you, your lived experience around how this is impacting you. I love everything, but I love you, and I love this email. I'm full of love. I love it when I email you, and sometimes we get a reminder from you saying mihi nui, which is thank you for your email. We are indigenizing our lives and commit to moving at a pace that supports the health and well-being of our families, community, and our planet Earth, countering a culture of unnecessary urgency. I love that. And yeah, really, I feel connected when I get that back. It's kind of like, Matt, chill out. Like, just shit's going to happen, and it's going to happen within a time frame that suits Gina's schedule, and it suits Mother Nature's schedule. And it made me check in with, well, why are my needs more important than Gina's timetable? So it kind of was a lovely leveling for me when I received that. And yeah, I'm just kind of curious to know what's happening there for you.
Well, you're one of many people that like it, and there's a few people that are annoyed by it when they're trying to have back and forths with me, and they keep getting this automatic response. I love hearing that it serves as a reminder to you to connect and slow down. I was just finding really that I was moving at a pace that was unnecessarily urgent. And I was going through a time in my life when I was being called into deep ceremony. And I and the ceremony was like being called into a deep grief ceremony. And I needed to make space for myself, and it was something new in my life, but I hadn't actually had to make some very direct, clear lines for myself to be able to honor the ceremony and also, keep my life going. And how was I able to honor that? What was my passage through that? And my passage through that was to communicate and share my desire and my need to let people know what I was doing and why and what was the purpose of it. And it was a conversation with my daughter when I'm like, I'm decolonizing my life and, I'm going to do all these things. And she goes, oh, we don't even say that anymore, Mum. We just say we're indigenizing. We don't even kind of go there with that language or that word. And I was like, oh, okay, great. So yeah, I just want to be able to share that wherever I can, that that everything I do within me will then be shared out to my family, my friends, my community, and wherever, and hopefully that will ripple out. Because there is a culture of a lot of urgency and fastness and fast pace that I myself experienced as not very helpful going through this time and hadn't noticed it. It's like it slowly creeps in, and you're like, all of a sudden you're like, I've got 10 projects on the go and I'm busy. Well, this is what happened to me. And this ceremony that I was called into helped me to understand that, and how did I want to influence that for myself. And then when I can work on that in me, I can share that out with everybody else around me. So the idea came to have an email autoresponder to share with people, like, how I'm doing my life, what it is and what the reasons are. Yeah. And it
Yeah.
sounds like it. Yeah. So
Y-
that's
thanks for
where I'm
that.
at with it.
Yeah, no, it's cool. And it just kind of was just a nice permission piece to kind of just say, this is where I'm at in the world right now. And
Mm.
like, there's things flowing and you're part of that flow, and I'll get back
Mm-hmm.
to you when I can. But like, let's just be in the living, be in the here and
Mm-hmm.
now, so to speak. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, I really was touched by it.
Gina, you were mentioning getting called into ceremony, and that was part of your kind of process around changing culture around how you email and communicate.
Mm.
It makes me curious around how ceremony and ritual might also influence and show up in your work, particularly, what comes to mind is like ecotherapy and nature-based therapy. Matt and I both studied under you to better
Mm-hmm.
understand that modality, and we have an understanding of creating
Mm-hmm.
thresholds that can be crossed over to start and finish processes. I'm wondering, yeah, what your relationship is like with ceremony and ritual in your kind of day-to-day therapeutic work.
Well, the ritual of thresholding and stepping into the work as a supportive co-container with our co-therapist nature, and stepping out as a ritual into and out of really a living ceremony, a living therapeutic
Mm.
ceremony, and a living ceremonial dialogue, um, deep dialogue with nature and a deep nature connection. So that's always part of my work. It's a nod to I'm entering a liminal ceremonial space, and this is my ritual to do that, to notice, find a threshold, find a place to begin, and a place that I can come back to and end. And I think the safety of that, the personal safety of that, the safety for nature to see that happening too,
Mm.
is deeply honoring. So I work a lot with that. That's how I work mainly. And also Dardidi and deep listening is very much part of my work, and creating ways to support clients to be able to do that too. The stillness, the invitations to stay with that, what
Mm.
someone is noticing, and be present in the here and now, and be open to just staying a little longer, just lingering a little longer, just
Mm.
not to the next thing, so to say. How can we just savor that moment, or savor, yeah, just be with that moment a little bit longer? So it's a very slow, deep listening to trees, to birds, to snake, to bark, to leaves, to river, to water, to ocean, to wind, and what that relationship to these elements and these parts of nature are offering.
Mm. Yeah, I love this lingering a little bit longer, this slowing down. It's kind of echoing what you're doing in your email auto
Mm-hmm.
reply as well, like this
Mm-hmm.
permission piece for us
Mm-hmm.
to just take another breath here
Mm-hmm.
and check in with self and check
Mm-hmm.
in with the moment. Yeah,
Yes.
it's a very lovely offer to like come back into the here and now.
Mm.
Mm. And, as you were naming all the elements, trees, ocean, air, the earth, and you mentioned earlier that you're based on Bundjalung country, and I've had
Mm-hmm.
the pleasure and honor of living up that way for a year or so, and I really recognize the potency and the different feeling up there around the northern rivers of New South Wales. I'm now back here on Gadigal land, and Matt also here in Sydney, but I'm wondering how Bundjalung country influences you or has influenced your journey as well.
I love that question. I will talk about my relationship with the land here and its inextricable link with the people that I know here.
Mm,
And one of the first things a beautiful brother Jambi said to me was, in these rocks and earth that in Bundjalung, there is a really high amount of black obsidian.
yes.
And that is that's a healing.
Mm,
It brings things up. It calls you into, taking notice of what's going on, and all these opportunities for self-healing and community healing. And that was a story about Bundjalung, that people pre-colonial times, tribal groups would come to this area to have healing and wellness, and then they would leave.
mm,
So I've got a connection with this obsidian. I don't know whether we call it a crystal or we call it I don't know whether it's crystal. I like the word crystal. We'll just use crystal.
mm,
And I'm attracted and really connected to the power of obsidian in terms of healing, but it can also be very um hard for people to sit in that space of what
mm,
things coming up and healing just wanting to happen through the crystal on the obsidian. So yeah, so that's my connection to the people and the place that link together. And I've totally forgotten what the original question was.
That's what
How
this conversation is all about, though. It's a
uh
sign of success when we lose track of where we started.
but I do notice that with my client work and my in ecotherapy and my in the room therapy, that people are like really, the land supports the healing conversations, the therapeutic
Mm,
conversations, and loudly amplifies resistance to to healing conversations and therapeutic conversations. And that when I'm tapping into my connection to country and my connections and people here that I know from Bundjalung sovereign people, um, then the healing just takes on its own direction. Yeah, so it's a very important part of my practice to know that I have a relationship with country and the custodians of this country. Not all the custodians, but the custodians that I have met in my work through WeArLe, and who are another family for me, and
mm.
community, which is deep, steep. Yeah.
Yeah. And I noticed as you were talking about that long, long history of people coming to Bundjalung to heal and then return, like there was emotion starting to swell in me as I reflect on my own personal journey and experiences of being up there and really churning through some difficult stuff in me and in my relationship at the time. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it did certainly feel like a pressure cooker at times, like that black obsidian energy just really kind of holding that dark mirror up, being like, you're gonna look at this, you're going to work your way through it. Yeah, and like I mentioned earlier, I'm just so grateful to have had that time up there. Yeah, and I'm also aware that you work between the Northern Rivers and Sydney. So I also, I guess you have an insight into the different tones, different flavors of how it is working up there, how it is working down here. Is there anything that you do kind of notice between the different places? Maybe you even have worked in other spots as well. Like, is there something about land, particularly when doing ecotherapy and nature-based therapy, that's like a very different flavor can come in, or a very different kind of character? I'm curious about that.
There is a difference, and I'm just like, images are coming rather than thinking what to say. And a sense of working in Sydney, I can be finding my way to a place to work, and it's like, 6-lane traffic, and there's like massive double-decker buses going, and like it's so busy. And then the moment I step into the meeting place, or just some little park or little forest set up, like I've worked at Stony Creek, and the moment I step in there, it's like nature just provides this beautiful natural container, and around it buzzing there's like the great big city life. And it's almost like a respite from the great big city. Or if I'm working along the Angofras, like along the harbour there, at some point there's this you can see helicopters and planes taking off, and things are going on, and then there's still this, I don't know, womb that's provided in amongst the Angofras and the Auntie Red Gums. Where, and in the rivers, there's just less of that juxtaposition or that polarity of like city versus it's kind of flowing with abundant nature and nature places. And I mean, there's the highway, that's about all we get, but it's an abundance of like cockatoos, crows, white cockatoos, rosellas, kookaburras, so much bird life. And I have heard that the amount of bird life is a sign of a good healthy ecosystem. And there's, sitting by the river, is sitting near the ocean. You can be in the forest looking at the ocean. Like there's just more of an abundance, less clarity. But what I would like to say is I also work in New Zealand, Aotearoa, and there is a significant difference. There's the birds. The birds are quiet. The land is gentle. There's just something different about the quality of working with whenua, hapatua, nupu. There are names for nature, taia, or taiao, I should say. And over in Australia, the birds are colourful and lively and energy, and there's an abundance of like diversity and competing kind of voices, whether it's so that's what I've noticed, like just as a tone between there's a gentleness or a quietness in Aotearoa, just predominantly from just the quietness of the birds compared to over here on these lands.
I've always thought that, actually. Thanks for naming that, because sometimes, like when I've been overseas and I hear other Australians, and it's that really loud, shrill kind of accent that sometimes Australians have, God bless, and it reminds me of that nature, like our birds and our wildlife. is shrill, is loud, is demonstrative. It's kind of like there's a connection there, and it's like I think that I've often wondered that, like, and I have a little chuckle sometimes out the back here in my house when I hear the cockatoos, and it's really like here they are, they've taken over, and it's like they demand their presence be known. Yeah, and I really love that. Gina, I've also just been sitting here thinking about like just like non-hierarchical orders, and how nature in many ways isn't about so much hierarchy, that it is in a sense a linear experience in how it propagates and works in ways of diversity in a kind of linear fashion. And then I was also thinking about, Gestalt's history of anarchism and its anarchistic roots, and how it's non-hierarchical in that sense, and its ways in which over history it's gone about kind of building new kinds of language, but within the field context. And then I was also thinking about, Gestalt and ecotherapy, and all that kind of blend of those three things together. And yeah, I'm just curious to know how that might sit with you, as to where Gestalt's origins and perhaps its queerness, and how you're kind of settling into ecotherapy in this kind of non-linear way. Yeah.
Well, that's a big question.
Mhm.
And how it's landing for me right now is in this statement that ecotherapy for me in our time is like the Gestalt therapy of the past time when it was created, and it's like it's anarchistic. Is that the word?
Mhm.
Like, yeah,
Mhm.
anarchistic. So if we think about where Gestalt therapy came from, it was post wars, and the paradigm at the time was people seeking like a deeper connection with each other from so much world war and separation and disconnection and violence. And in terms of the therapeutic realm, it was the analysis, and like there was no real relational, and the relational part of it was considered like anarchistic, and with we're at another paradigm shift. We are on the horns of another paradigm shift where we're in late stage capitalism. Late stage capitalism has palmed more than the few who have benefited, and especially the earth. And people are questioning individuality and individual isolated I and me, and they're searching for belonging, whereas our Gestalt anarchistic roots, people were searching for just more relationship, learning how to just do that. And we've now evolved into, well, we have relationship now. Where do we belong when our whole environment is like set up for like consumerists, like disconnect, and people wanting more, not just relationship, but deeper sense of who am I? I belong. I belong to Earth. If I can't find around me with the people that I need, that are unnecessarily in urgency and like can't connect, I can go back to who I was originally, who I am originally, who we all are originally. We're Earth people, right? So I think that is our paradigm shift, and I think ecotherapy and Gestalt therapy particularly is the field. This is the field. We respond to the field. The people that created Gestalt therapy responded to the field and the need for how does everybody be well as well together. So that community and that ideal. And so I think Gestalt therapy and ecotherapy, Gestalt therapy supports this emergence of this paradigm shift back to who we are as Earth people.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, no, thank you. Beautifully said, beautifully shared. And it's just nice to have those parallels. Remind me of those parallels. And that was, I guess, for me, that questioning of, bringing back the old parts of Gestalt into the new and that similarity. Ash had kind of mentioned something as well, Ash Powers, around some similar thoughts and feelings around ecotherapy and classical Gestalt. Kind of now ecotherapy is picking up in a new direction and running with that change, which is really exciting.
I think Gestalt therapy is we're always responding to the environment, and that's part of the whole theory, field theory, you know, and how we can respond in a way or be part of that in a way that we still are able to be potent and part of. And so I think it's less about old and new for me, but more about these anarchistic origins set us on a path to be very present to the field conditions and what's happening and the needs and responding to it. Yeah. Old and also new, or I don't know what we say that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, as you speak about, late stage capitalism and where we seem to have found ourselves in 2025, I can't help but wonder what the soothing balm is. And as you were saying, coming back to nature and connecting back in through things like ecotherapy can be one of those paths. I guess I'm interested, and also for maybe listeners who haven't experienced ecotherapy, I'm wondering if anything kind of comes to mind as an example of how supportive or affirming nature can be as a co-therapist. Like if there's a particular maybe moment from client work or a spontaneous nature event where it was just, a really affirming or significant moment, either with the client or maybe in your own just personal practice, where nature really came in and was like, here I am, here's a symbol, here's a moment, like, enjoy this contact with me.
So many. But what I have learned in my development as an ecotherapist, always hunting for like the big moment, is that, in the words of my grandmother, don't overlook the small things. They often have the most potential and the most to learn from. So in my training, in my 4-year master's training, whenever I would be deeply processing my cultural shame or lack of knowledge, or I don't know, grief, these huge winds would just come out of nowhere. We were in group and just start blowing things around the room, or if we're working at a residential, the wind would just come. And it was a beautiful friend of mine, Kurt, that pointed this out and brought this to my attention. And at the time, I knew that it was ancient and I knew that it was old. And I just kept noticing the winds, like that gift from my training, and just kept noticing the winds. And then what I came to know and experience within myself was like these are the words of the ancestors, like the ancestors carry wisdom through the winds. And as I listened more and sat with wind, and there's all different types of winds and what they mean, but I just started to discover that for myself, and noticing the winds was my own wisdom connecting with my ancestors, and just supporting like more of an inner frame and a processing of my grief around my culture, and being more comfortable with just knowing what I know, and being more open to hearing what the words of my ancestors are through the winds. So that's a personal story about my what am I doing now? Like 15-year journey with the winds.
Wow.
And that
thank you for
came to me through
sharing.
my training. That's one thing.
I hope you're enjoying our chat with Gina. This is Dabaco from the Edit Suite. I just have a little footnote for the next story that Gina's about to share. She's since corrected that the bird she references isn't a dotterel but an oyster catcher. We like to make sure we get our bird and animal identification right as best as we can on the podcast. And I'll now hand you back to Gina.
And another thing is, just recently in a session, so the whales are coming back from breeding with all of their calves. And so again, this whole area, being the easternmost point, is filled with, instead of whales going that way, a lot of whales coming back this way. So I was working with a client, and he has ADHD, and really would like to work on presence. And we were processing and talking about something that was becoming figural for him, and the invitation was to have the dialogue with nature, and there was whales, like lots of whales going off in the background, and he connected with the crashing waves coming in close by, and was having a dialogue and had a ritual around letting go into the ocean and walking just at a comfortable level into the water, and with asking me to be not there but behind as a support pole, or a support tree, or po, we call it in New Zealand, like a stick in the ground. And all the time that ritual was happening was a dotterel, a single dotterel that was just kind of walking around and like catching pippies and opening the pippies and like eating the pippies. Dotterel's
What is a dotterel?
A bird.
A type of bird.
Yeah, type of bird, yeah. And the client came back, and we were just talking, how like finishing off the ritual of letting go. And I invited my observation of bird. And I said, look who's arrived here, who's been here for this time. I just, just off inviting a noticing of this bird. And I did not know this, but the client knew a lot about birds, and apparently this particular bird species always is with a mate. And this bird was particularly on their own. And so the appearance of this nature event, spontaneous nature event, we might call it, was the messaging and the meaning for the client was that the bird has come to say, hey, I'm normally meant to be with a mate. That's how I live my life, but you're okay to be on your own. And that was the theme and the big figure of my client's work. And, they were all whales. It was all sorts of things happening that were just excessive and gorgeous, and everyone loves whales and nature. But it was the little bird, right? The
Yeah.
dotterel. That
Mm.
was the happening.
Beautiful.
Mm.
Yeah,
Mm.
so touching.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing
Yeah.
that story with us.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're
It's also that permission to respond to symbols, isn't it? Like, I think from my experience of ecotherapy, it's like there is how we attract symbols, or how we're drawn to symbols, or how we respond to symbols or miss them as well. And that's a beautiful example of, a visitor coming in and almost declaring its way to be known, to send a message. So yeah, lovely share. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm also looking at the time, and getting close to a nice 50-minute chat. And I'm just wondering, before, we kind of wind things up, is there anything in particular that we wanted to kind of touch base with here before we close off?
I can't believe it's been 50 minutes.
Just
It's a
aware
sign
of
of a
time.
great conversation, and I feel
Yeah.
like this is only part one. It would be
Yes.
amiss to not have another opportunity in the future
Absolutely.
to continue this chat, because it's been
I
so
would love to.
nourishing.
I'd love to. I'd
Yeah.
love to do a way to finish. A little
Yeah.
something to
Great.
finish up, if you're up to that. Up for
Sure.
that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hell yeah.
All right. So we call
love
this
this.
like our inner elder wisdom.
Mm.
So just find a way to be comfortable and allow yourself, if you want to close your eyes down gently, that's fine, to connect with our whole 50 minutes and see what's landing. And just connect into your elders and your ancestors. And what piece of wisdom, like proper elder, auntie, uncle, old ancestor wisdom, it's like usually punchy and it's quite short. What comes to you in a short statement from an ancestor to close off this space? What wisdom comes?
Oh.
For me, what was coming through was this kind of playful, larrikin, trickster message of like, whatever you do, don't forget how to have fun.
Yeah, nice. I got my queer ancestors coming in, and they're always a bit irreverent, a bit cheeky. And I got, bitch, we're not done yet. Don't forget who we are.
Love that. And my piece was, you did good, girl. That's what my auntie say to me. You did good, girl.
Yeah. I love that little
Fantastic.
ritual that you took us through. Thank you. And this is the first time a guest has facilitated our ending, which is a beautiful new experience for us. Gina, it's been such a treat to chat with you. If people are curious about following your work and maybe even seeing if you have space for them to work with you, how can people follow along, find out more about you and your work?
Oh dear.
How can they get that automated response to slow down?
They can email me. I don't have a website. Sorry, people. It's very disappointing. They can email me.
Or find you maybe on the Gestalt Sydney
yes,
website
right.
as well.
Yes.
So you're
Exactly. The Gestalt.
in the collective community there, gestaltsydney.com.au, I think it is. Yeah.
Yes, it is. And I also have a Instagram page called Go Nature, Go Nature, as in Gina ONeill Nature. So I think it's
I
G
like
dot
that.
G.O.nature.
Great.
Yeah.
We will put that in the show notes for anyone
Yep.
that's interested in checking out Gina's work. Thank you again for joining us on Gestalt Me Gently. Yes,
Thanks,
sending lots
guys.
of love.
Yeah.
All right, take care, everyone.
Thanks, Gina.
Thank you.
Thank
It's a
you.
great
All the best.
project. Keep going. It's a great
We're
project
loving
that you're
it.
doing.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I can see. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.